All right, folks, what's going on? It's David Siteman Garland, aka DSG, and I'm joined today by my sister in red across the pond, Persia Lawson. How are you?
I'm fantastic, thank you. How are
It,
you?
it looks like we coordinated, except you got all nice and ready, and I look, more on the quarantine homeless here. I'm glad that we coordinated our red outfits today. I'm
I
super
know
excited about that.
it's fantastic, especially as my online course is all about love.
Right, and so it's perfect time. Maybe I just did that. It was in the back of my
It's
mind.
subconscious.
That
Yeah,
must have been it. Now, tell us where you're coming from today here on the video.
I'm coming from the middle of the countryside in England, in Worcestershire, so the Midlands in England.
Okay.
I'm quarantining at my fiance's family's home.
Okay, nice. Well, you know what? This should give a nice break from all that as we get to chat about fun stuff today. So, before we get started, just to kind of paint some color for folks, is that you're a student in my Create Awesome Online Courses program. Been in there for several years. I actually went back and found some of your fun Facebook posts we'll talk about in the past from the Create Awesome Online Courses group. But we're going to really dissect and dive into your business because you have such an interesting topic and an interesting brain and doing all kinds of cool things. But to get started, just to give people that are just meeting you right now, can you just give us the sort of the Cliff's Notes version of who you are and what you do and what your expertise is?
Sure. So I'm Persia Lawson. I'm an author, speaker, and a love coach, and I help single women navigate the chaos of the online dating world so that they can go on to attract a healthy, soulful, and lasting relationship. So I trained as a life coach quite a long time ago. I used to be an actress. I'll give you the very, very brief version.
I love hearing this story. You don't have to be brief. Listen, we're in no rush here. I love hearing this story.
Time. Actually, yeah, we've got time is on our side, I suppose.
Exactly.
So, the way that I got into this whole work in the first place was, I used to be an actress. I grew up. My parents struggled with addiction, and with drug addiction, and the way that I sort of dealt with that was from a very young age. I basically got obsessed with boys. It was an excellent distraction and it was great escapism. And it got progressively worse over time, especially when my parents, they got into rehab, they got sober. And because I was so used to drama and chaos, I went and I started recreating that in my love life because that was, humans will always gravitate towards what is, familiar to them, even if what's familiar is crap. Long story short, had a bit of a, completely heartbroken in my mid-20s, and my dad took me away to Thailand. We did this yoga retreat, and on the beach he said this thing that completely changed my life. He said, if you focus on the insides, the outsides will take care of themselves. And it was from that point I went on to sort myself out. I wrote a book with a friend. We set up this positive lifestyle movement. And so our career was going really, really well. And then there came a fork in the roads where she decided she didn't want to continue on anymore. She wanted to do her own thing. So at that point, I'd been a year with my now fiance, Joe. And I just knew straight away, because I'd done so much work on my love life. I was like, I just want to focus on love and helping women get healthy relationships. And that's where you came in, because I'm good friends with Mel Wells, who's a student of yours.
Yes.
And she'd created a brilliant course and was doing so well with it. And so I was already teaching one-on-one, and it was just a case of, turning that into an online course. And I was recommended to you by so many people. So that was it. I created the course, and here I am today, 2 years later.
And here we go. And it's fun, just like that, right? And it's
Just
funny.
like
And by the way, Mel is amazing. Mel is someone that's been a real leader and an amazing woman, and that's great. Anyone that comes from Mel is like automatically a rock star, And so a few things here. What I love, it's really interesting is, I've talked to lots of students. I've talked to lots of non-students. I've talked to lots of people about their businesses. And I always notice something that's a key observation for me. The people that are the most successful, have it the most together, are doing really cool things. They're able to be very concise in explaining what they do for people. And you did that so well, no surprise. Do you know what I mean? You're like, here's what I do. Here's who I help. This is how it works. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's a good kind of takeaway for people that are listening to this that maybe are still figuring that out, that happens over time. It happens over time.
Oh my God.
Do you know what I mean?
Listen, I was an actress. I could make that story go on for 10 days.
Yeah.
I really can. And I had to just keep going, okay, in a nutshell, what is it? Who is it for? Exactly what you said. And it's really helpful when you can boil it down to that simple sort of little nugget.
Yeah, amazing. And so, all right, let's talk about the course, and then we'll talk about kind of your audience and your course and all that kind of good stuff. Getyoursoulmate.com, by the way, is one of the we have other websites we'll probably share with people later on, but that's the site. Get Your Soulmate. As of when we're shooting this, it's not open right now, but that has some info on it that we have. But let's talk about the course here. So, you're doing one-on-one. So pre-course with your business, you had a book. You were doing coaching one-on-one. So someone would hire you and they would say, "Hey, Persia, I need to find my soulmate," or how would that work? So you were doing one-on-one coaching. Is that what was that the model at the time?
Yeah, that was it. So our book had come out. My business and partner and I had gone separate ways. And so we'd had our own course that was linked to our book. So I was like, okay, I want to create my own that's specifically for women who are single and who are around the age of 30, sort of 30 and above, and who are panicking that there's, feeling the pressure to settle down. And, like me, they may have in the past been really struggling. And so I created this online program, and actually, I created the one-to-one version, and Mel was one of my first clients. And that's how our friendship started. And the thing is, whilst I loved it and I learned a lot from working one-on-one, it's not scalable. Like you can only work with so many. And so because Mel was my first client and I'd seen what she'd done with her program, it just opened my mind to the possibilities. And she met the love of her life having done the one-to-one version with me. So I knew it was good and I knew it could get results.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And that's where, and people are all different with how they end up with deciding to scale and go with their course. And you started as a coach, which a lot of people do. Some people don't, but I'm saying a lot of people do. And I'm curious, as we dive into more the course portion of this, for those, we'll call them the OG clients, the original one-on-one clients that you worked with, how did you find those people? Or how did they find you?
I think it helped that I had a book out. I had Instagram. To be honest, my main platform, and it still is, I would say, is Instagram. So I was sharing content that was relevant to those people. And then it just, one client would get good results and they would tell another client. But it felt a little bit like, I'll be honest, I didn't have a great strategy plan in those early days. It wasn't like as systemized as it now is with my online course. So it felt a little bit like your expression, you say, throwing spaghetti at the wall. It felt a bit like that.
Yeah, and that's how pretty much every business starts for the most part. It's a spaghetti, it's a carb party. We're throwing spaghetti at the wall, we're eating it. It's like you figure it out, some things work, some things don't. You kind of start to find, for me back in the day, it was a podcast, right? Like it actually was called a web show. It's what I'm calling this now too. That was before the term podcast was even really used all that often. And it's funny, that was my kind of experiment to sort of build my audience, and yours, Instagram and things like that as well. And it's also interesting too, is that, books still very, very relevant. I mean, meaning that, an expert, you being an expert, a subject matter expert, a personal brand, a lot of times, that again is another great way of putting a flag in the ground and saying, hey, this is something that I know, this is something that I want to teach. And people gravitate to books and people like to hear when you have a book. So that makes a lot of sense. Now on Instagram, and then we'll get into the course, that just gave me pause for a second, is that, and you mentioned it's not necessarily the most strategic thing in the history of the world, which is totally fine. When you were kind of building up your Instagram, because I've seen your Instagram, and by the way, you follow an impressive 0 people, which I love. That is, I know. I love it. Just living the dream. Just, here, I got to make sure here. I'm going to hit the follow. So, okay, now you got one more follower, and I will not get one, but that's fine. But, I love, if I go on here, I'm seeing you and your fiance. I'm seeing, I see a horse. I see a variety of different things that you have going on here on your Instagram. It looks very diverse. Is there any strategy or any things that have worked well for you, or what was the appeal also for Instagram?
Well, Instagram, I just quite like the visual nature of it. I did actually used to do a lot of sort of Facebook Lives when Facebook Lives first came out. But then when Instagram brought them out, I was like, I'm going to that. And I think, to be honest, one of the most important thing was creating a lead magnet, creating an opt-in so that I would be building my list, which we all know is very, very important. And that opt-in has changed over time. That's, at the moment it's a audio training. Other times it's been, I created an ebook. And then, when I was launching the course, I had the 3-part video training series. I've had a webinar. So I've experimented with different things. And I think, that's one thing I really learned from you, David, is like, listen, I'm a perfectionist by nature. I think a lot of people listening probably are. And you just have to get curious, and you just have to, Marie Forleo always says clarity comes from engagement, not thought. And that really stuck with me. And I think there is nothing more appropriate for course creating than that idea of like, you have to just create your own data and experiment and not be afraid to start, because it's not, listen, when I first launched the course, I had these lofty dreams of like the hundreds that would come through the doors. But I wasn't ready to support 100 people at the start. You have to start small and allow it to grow as you grow.
Right. And that's another thing, like a very common trait of people that have been successful with courses is understanding the long-term game. Do you know what I mean? And understanding that it's not, and I think, and I even said this when I chatted recently with Catherine Beck, our accent coach. It was the same. I'm going to go on the same exact rant. It's like Groundhog Day, right? But it's the same thing where, I think we were kind of polluted back in the day, years ago, by these sort of opportunists that would come in and say like, how to make $1 zillion in 5 seconds by hitting a button, right? And then you imagine, and all that stuff wasn't true, and all that stuff had, craziness, and all those people, by the way, are out of the business. But the thing is, like, having that long-term perspective, having a genuine passion for helping people, having a genuine passion for your subject matter, right? Those in the long-term perspective, those are the people that make it work, right? Because trouble is going to come up. We'll get into trouble. I'm sure you've had trouble with something. We'll get into trouble here throughout this conversation. But it's amazing. Those are the things that are going to carry you through when you get into those types of situations. And I love that you mentioned about building your list and building your audience and having lead magnets. And I think what I love about that is what I love about this business is that you can try different things without a major risk. You know what I mean? It's not like, okay, you're going to switch this week and you're going to do a new audio file and it's going to cost you $100,000 in inventory and you have to rent a office. Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to do any of that stuff. Like, it's just like, okay, it's almost as creative as you can get and as quickly as you can move. That's how things get done. And that's a great testament to that. And I'm curious, you had this business going one-on-one. You mentioned it wasn't scalable. We all know that with one-on-one business. But what was the appeal for you? Because we always talk about that your why has to be stronger than your why nots, right? What was the appeal for you for specifically doing an online course? What was like, oh my God, this is what I want to do?
It was impacting more people would probably be the first. Impacting more people with, the same amount of work once you've built it, of course. And also, quite frankly, like, I love traveling, and I was creating this course while my fiance and I were traveling around the world in Asia, where there was very limited Wi-Fi, which was, I recommend, don't make it too hard on yourself like I did. But that was a really important thing, being like freedom. That is my number one value, being able to be free about how I can support and serve and, live a lifestyle that suits me. And I think that the one-on-one, and I still do one-on-one, but I've shifted what that is now, because I've got, I could put my prices up and work with a particular, like, less people, and be sort of more niche about that. And again, I wouldn't have been able to do that without this course. So it's just given me so much more freedom. And again, because I had a good friend, Mel, who I could see her. I was like, I know that this course is good because I can see what it's actually doing for her life. And I just saw, she's making good money. She's living on her own terms and she's helping tons of people. And that's what I want in my own sort of, in my niche.
Nice. And I love it. Now let's get into some of the nitty gritty of the course itself. So number one, what is the ideal? I think we know what it is from what you stated, what you do, but what's the ideal outcome? If you have your perfect student comes in, they come in, they do this course, they do everything you say. You say jump, you say wear red, they wear, 2 things of red, right? What's the ideal outcome?
So the majority of them, their ideal outcome would be that they come, they do the work, and soon enough they get their dream relationship. And that is the case for a lot. What I realized as the data came in, whilst I always was like, yay, when someone was like, I've met the love of my life, or, we've had quite a few engagements, we've had 2 weddings, we've had a few babies, all of that's fantastic. But for me, what was more powerful is when they would do the program and realize, you know what, like, I've fallen in love with myself, and I know that I need to spend, like, I want to work on that relationship, and I trust that the romantic relationship will turn up when it's meant to. For me, that was more powerful because it wasn't about getting the shiny ball. Really, the program, it's a bit of a Trojan horse, it is about getting the other person, but really it's about finding yourself. It's about getting yourself. It's about understanding yourself. It's about, really cultivating a deep, healthy, intimate relationship with yourself. And then the romantic relationship is the cherry on top.
And it's the old saying, I'm going to say this probably backwards, I got to make sure I say this right, okay? It's the old saying, you give them what they want, sell them what they want, give them what they need. There it is. Because
that's exactly it.
Right, because if you think about that too, if you created a program that was called, work on yourself. do you know what I mean? You know what I mean? I don't think so. Like, this one, like you said, I like what you said about that. And it's funny that a lot of programs end up that way, where it's like, okay, this is kind of the hook, but then there's other things that we're working on within the program. So that makes a lot of sense. Now, did you pre-record or pre-launch your course?
So I pre-record it. When you say pre-launch?
Oh, so what I mean by pre-record versus pre-launch was the way that, now we teach it both ways and create awesome online courses. For a long time, I kind of was very steadfast on this, that you record your course, then you launch it. Meaning that your course is complete when you launch it. That's option 1. And option 2, which we now also teach as well, because some people like to do this as well, is you can teach you launch it, then you record it as you go. You say, hey, listen, I've got a course. It's going to be, about finding your soulmate. It's going to be 6 modules. We're going to record 1 each week. We're going to do it live or pre-record it, whatever it might be. So I'm curious, did you like to complete it and then launch, or did you do it?
No, I recorded it all, and part of me, I don't regret it because I'm glad it's done, in all honesty. I think the good thing about if you do, I love lives, I like teaching live. I used auto cue, which I'd never done it before. So that was an interesting experience. And I do sometimes look at it and think I look a bit like a newsreader, but at the same time, it was perfect. So part of me thinks, if I redid it, I think it would probably be easier to do it as you go. And also because you've sold it, like, you have to get it done. But I pre-recorded it all.
Okay, pre-record it. How did you price it?
So I priced it. I went the higher tier. So I went £797. I don't know what that is in dollars. If you pay in full, and it was £79 a month if you over 12 months if you do the 12 payment plan. And with that you got you got live coaching, you got all sorts of bells and whistles with it as well.
And how did you? Everybody's different with this. Everyone's got a different way. Obviously, we teach this inside of Create Awesome Online Courses, but how did you get comfortable with that price? How did you kind of land on that price?
I played around with it. It's hard, isn't it? Because
it is.
I think, you can get ideas about what people will or won't pay. And I thought I want it to be at the higher end, even though, I had people saying to me, oh, but it's not a business course. You can't charge that much.
Oh, who's that? You send them to me and I'm going to kick them. I'm kicking them.
I was like, but if you met the love of your life as a result of doing this work, which a lot of them do, is that not worth £797? I was really clear. I wanted it to be expensive enough that people would do the work seriously. And because if it was too cheap, I know when I've paid not a lot for a course, I haven't taken it seriously and I haven't done the work and then I haven't got the results. So it was really important to me to make it, feel like it was an investment.
That makes perfect sense, and that's something obviously taught in depth inside of Create Awesome Online Courses. But everyone's how they arrive at the price, everybody's a little bit different. So I love hearing those things.
Yeah, I just kind of felt. I just sort of felt into it.
Yeah, it's funny. At the end of the day, I mean, there's no. We can give strategies for pricing. We can give this. I can give case studies. I can give what I think. I can give all these different things on it. But at the end of the day, you got to choose and go. I mean, you just got to
Yeah.
choose and go, and you know, you have to do the work to make sure your value makes sense with it. But yes, you want people that are serious about your course. Now, what's been your best, I'll call this sales mechanism. So what I mean by a sales mechanism is, you know, a webinar or a video series or an email series. What's been the best sales conversion mechanism so far for your course?
100% your webinar training that I also got. Oh my God, that was a game changer. Because what was it converting at? I think it was 10% or so. Yeah,
Yeah.
really good. So the webinar is called How to Get Attractive, Successful, Emotionally Available Men Begging to Date and Commit to You. Now I would sign up for that.
That's juicy. That's juicy.
It's so juicy, but again, you get into the training, and you know, at the heart of my message is we need, you know, in the sort of superficial times we live in, we need to stop looking outside of ourselves for the partner we want to get, and we need to start looking inside of ourselves for the partner we want to be. So it's really about, you know, it's about taking responsibility for how you're showing up. But again, it's a bit of a Trojan horse because people want the quick fix, and then you get in, and I'm like, listen, there is no quick though. This is the fastest route you can get there, but you've got to accept it's going to take. You have to have some patience. You can't Amazon Prime a relationship. You have to be willing to do the work and to really show up and to give it the space that it needs. But to go back to your question, yeah, the webinar.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Yeah. That makes sense. And by the way, just as relevant today as it ever has been, my friends.
Yeah.
Like it's funny that I you know, every year people like to talk about the death of X, right? Like the death of email lists, the death of businesses, the death of whatever, death of webinars. You know what I mean? And I love how I always respond to if someone's like, webinars don't work or don't work anymore. I was like, you know which ones don't work? Crappy ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. If they suck, it's not going to work. Or if it's deceptive, or if it's you know, a really, really bad pitch. Do you know what I mean? Like if you don't know what you're doing with it, then yes, of course it's not going to work, or, you know, whatever it might be. And so it's funny that, you know, the way that we teach it and still teach it, it's amazing. And it's the same thing, by the way, for us right now. I mean, our webinar, createawesomeonlinecourses.com, you go there, the webinar, that our number one conversion mechanism. Do you know what I mean? It's to this day. So that's really interesting to hear. Now, in terms of your email list growth, building your audience. And by the way, just so people know, you posted in the Facebook group, this was a few weeks ago, that you just did our best ever launch. I'm reading this right now. For our digital love coaching program, over $67,000 with then we got like a heart with a dot underneath and then a heart smiley face. I like to read the emojis. I think this just shows people really do want to invest themselves in learning right now. Thank you so much for creating the program to help me and so many others during these crazy times. Love, Persia. So you just came off like a massive
Oh
promotion.
my God. So David, do you know how crazy the last few months have been? I mean, it's been crazy for everyone, but like everyone's been like a lot of people I know have been like, oh, I've just, you know, lazing about loads of time. And I'm like, I am busier than ever.
Yeah.
I'm like triply as busy because also the irony is me and my fiance are supposed to get married in June where we are here, like a whole weekend festival. We had to change that as I was doing the course launch.
Yeah.
We also we pivoted with our messaging around because we did the 3-part video training kind of as a challenge. So we really, you know, we wanted to, I think it's important to be sensitive to the times. And
100%.
For me, with, you know, because of the nature of this program, the people's romantic lives are certainly for a lot of women, it's really been in the forefront of their minds. So I wanted to be sensitive and not sort of ignore what was going on in the world, but it was very intense.
Yeah, it's funny.
But then it was great.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I always said that too about messaging during a crisis. And obviously, as we record this, in the midst of this, we're in the middle of a crisis. This crisis will end. And guess what? At some point in the future, there might be another crisis. Do you know what I mean? So this is relevant. This could be relevant 10 years from now, people watching this, right? But I'm saying that, yeah, you adjust your messaging to the times. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you don't stop promoting. You don't stop launching. You don't stop doing business. You don't stop any of this stuff because, like I said, more people want to learn right now. More people are preparing now for the future. You know, they want results now. Some people have way more time. Some people have way less time. It's all different, but you can't stop it. But yes, being sensitive to the fact, like, hey, listen, You might not be able to meet the love of your life at the local pub right now or whatever it might be, but we can work on this, or here's some things you can do now. And I love that, just adjusting it. And also, it's not like you re-recorded everything and made it, COVID-19 find your soulmate.
No,
it's just adjusting the messaging a little bit during these times can make a difference. And I appreciate you sharing that. Now, shifting gears on audience a little bit here, so you mentioned Instagram. You mentioned obviously you have your lead magnets set up. You've got your course. Is your webinars now? Do you have auto webinars as well, or just live?
So I have used auto webinar, but I just have been doing them live more recently.
Cool. So you got all this stuff going on. What's been the key to now finding your audience? Where has traffic been coming from? Where have you seen people now finding you, or you finding people?
So a lot of it's come from being asked to be a guest on other podcasts.
Ooh.
And of course, the more results I've got from my online program, which is just incredible, more people want to speak to you and get your insights. So that's a huge thing. And what I'm seeing a lot is people sort of tagging. I'll write a post on Instagram and someone will tag in the comments and say, this is the lady I was telling you about. Like, so I feel like probably one of the biggest things is referral, because even people who have podcasts they want me on, it's because they've heard me on another podcast, or a friend's recommended me. So I think, reputation's really important like that. You, as well as, how good you are at what you teach and the value of what you teach. You want to be you want to try and be likable and get on with people, because I'll always recommend people who I think are brilliant as well and who are nice. So I think that's been probably the main thing I'd say.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, because in every market for the most part, there are people that are I'm not gonna go back, that are really, really nice, and there's people that are massive jerk faces in pretty much every market. There just is, and there's people that are. Everybody's different. This is just like the welcome to the real world. Do you know what I mean? And some people have an online persona, and their offline persona is very different. And I know people like that too. And it's actually kind of frightening. And it's funny. One of the biggest compliments that I've gotten over the years, and I take this as like a very strong compliment, is people are like, "Oh, you're the exact same in person as you are." I'm a big believer in that. Be who you are, right? But I'm also a believer that like niceness gets you a long way. In this business. I mean, do you really want someone, like, all things being equal, let's say I have to interview a dog trainer, right? Let's say I have to interview a dog trainer, and I've got two dog trainers, and they're both really, really good. And one is a little bit bigger than the other one, but is a huge jerk. I don't want that one.
Yeah.
Who wants to talk to that person? Do you know what I mean? I want to talk to a nice person. Yeah. And so I think that goes a long way. Now, with podcasts, which makes a ton of sense, right? Being on guests and doing that. Obviously now your reputation precedes you. I think that at some point in everybody's business, as you grow, this is a good thing, things kind of go from outbound to inbound a lot of times. Yeah. Like you don't stop outbound, but I'm meaning that people start to ask for you, right? And like you just said, tagged on Instagram. Oh, I saw you on this podcast, things like that. But when you were kind of coming up here as you're on that other side of it, did you pitch yourself at all? Did you reach out to people? What did you do with that? Because I think that's something a lot of people could learn from as they might be watching this right now and thinking, oh, you know what? I should do something like that.
Yeah. Little tip here. So I now have, I've got an assistant who, she will contact a lot of people who have podcasts that we think I'd be a good fit for, because to be honest, they're my favorite. I love, just like this, like we're doing now, it's my favorite to chat like this. But in the past, I've like pretended to be an assistant, and because I just think if someone doesn't want to, if someone wants to turn you down, it doesn't feel as awkward. And I heard that tip. God knows where I heard that tip, but you can, that's worked for me. So reaching out, I think also, like you mentioned how the reason I don't follow anyone on Instagram, which definitely lost me some followers, it was purely for my mental health, because I kept getting, when I was trying to, create a book or whatever I'm doing, I can get so distracted down the rabbit hole of social media. But what I will do is I kind of use Instagram quite intuitively. So I'll think of someone and I'll go, I'll go and check them and see how they're doing, and I'll read their latest post, and like often I'll write a little comment underneath. So I think it's important to engage, because people might see you write a comment and then they'll go and click on you and see what you're up to, but you are allowed to do it on your own terms. And I think I used to get really stressed out by thinking I had to do all the things. And I love in Create Online Courses, you've got the list building section. There's so many different things, and you say like pick one or two.
Maximum.
Don't do everything. Yeah, that's been the biggest thing, because I think it's looking at, okay, what do I like doing? Where are my strengths? And just another thing is, like, really, I'm such a, like, I want things like this, and I've really got better at slowing down and being like, success comes slowly. Like, you have to be patient. It's exactly what I teach the women in my program. Like, you're not going to just get a partner like that because you're not ready. You've just got to invest in the process. And when you kind of stop obsessing so much about it, it feels like the opportunities actually come in more, ironically. I'm just trying to think if there was any others. I write a weekly newsletter to my list, and sometimes, often that will be shared around between people, and then I'll obviously share that blog on my Instagram. So I think it's important to be building a relationship with the people that are already following you, even if that, for once it was really small amount for me, and it's just grown over time.
That's a great point. So first of all, few things to unpack there. I mean, number one, great point, of course, about the kind of the audience building and the traffic strategies, right? Because that's where people end up in trouble, is they either try to do too many, right? Where they're saying, okay, well, I'm going to start a podcast and I'm going to do YouTube and Instagram, the side of Pinterest, I'm on TikTok, and I'm doing this and I'm doing it all every day. You're going to burn out and you're going to explode, right? It's just not going to work, right? You're not going to get traction. The other thing is understanding your personality and your situation, right? Like, for example, you said, I love being a podcast guest. Well, guess what? Then you're going to be a good podcast guest, and you're going to enjoy it, and you're going to do it. But let's just say you had a different personality, and you said, you know what? Hate being a podcast guest. Don't want to do that. I prefer to be in my rabbit hole and work on data and do my Facebook ads. Great. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's fine. You got to know yourself, and that's why we give lots of options for all different types of people with that. So that's really interesting. And that actually led me to exactly what I was going to mention next. It was your comment about your newsletter. Is that, that's the thing, again, one of the most forgotten things. People love talking about traffic. People love talking about even lead magnets and things like that. Their course, their programs, right? But there's a gap between that. And that's the ongoing relationship building and trust building and all those kinds of things. Everybody's different. And I'm curious, once someone's on your email list, you just mentioned a newsletter, so maybe tell us a little bit more about that. Once someone's in your world, they've now entered the Persia world, right?
Yeah.
How do you continue to engage them over time?
Well, David, I'm glad you asked that. I have the all-important nurture sequence, which I love. The first one is they opt in for, at the moment, it's a free audio training, the fastest way to meet your soulmate, brackets, even in lockdown. And they'll go on that, they'll get that sent, and then over a period of like 8 days, they will I'll send them, it's all automated, which is great. And, they'll get to know me because I'll share various different things and other resources and cross-pollinate, if you will, because at the bottom of one of those emails, it'll say, P.S. Are we connected on Instagram? Come say hi. So that they are, they're really feeling like they've got to know me, they get to trust me a bit, they get to, suss out my vibe. I think that's one of the reasons as the lead magnet, I wanted to do an audio training, because I personally, I really resonate with people who, when I can hear their voice and I can hear a bit of their personality. So, I use that sort of first 8 days for them to get to know me. And then every week on a Tuesday, I send out a newsletter as well. And I'll be sharing, top tips to navigate, quarantine while, as a single 30-something woman, or I'll share, I've been writing a new book, so I've been, I'll write bits of a chapter and then I'll put that in, and I'll send that as a newsletter. If I've done an interview with someone, I might send that. But just, I'm every week I'm just popping into their inbox and saying hi.
Right, and that's so important, and people gloss over that. Do you know what I mean? People think like, oh yeah. You know what I mean? No, I'll just get some people and then eventually I'll sell them something. Right? No, that's not how it works. And it's funny also, and I think you made a great point there, and I want people to really, really hone in on this, is that you're not doing anything overly complicated here. You're not
No.
sending something out. You're like, hey, here's this week's 46-minute training. Turn in next week
Hmm.
for next week's 46-minute training. No, it could be a picture. It could be
Yeah.
hey, here's a quick update from my book. Here's this. You just want to
Mm.
stay on
In their
people's
minds.
minds.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
you know what? Not everyone's going to read every email. Not everyone's going to
Hmm.
look at everything. But guess what? Oh, I remember. Okay, yeah. She's the woman that helps you get the
Hmm.
soulmate, or I
Yeah.
remember that one post that really resonated with me, or this or that. Then when you go into a launch or a promotion or something like that, that's why we have the difference between a cold and a warm audience. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and
Exactly.
people that really genuinely start to know you. So I think, and again, I don't know why but I feel like that is just so often skipped because people want to get.
Yeah.
It's like they're like, I want the audience and I want the money. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
there's a lot more
Yeah.
to it. There's more
Yeah.
to it. But I
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing that. Now, just a couple more questions and we'll wrap up here in a few minutes. Along the route here of let's put this into one category of kind of course creating, course building, course launching, audience launching, all that kind of stuff. Has there been something, if you went back and you're like, oh, Persia, do it differently next time, like, or this was something I made a mistake on, or something I would change in the future if I were to redo anything? Is there anything that you would point to for that?
Well, I'd say probably don't try and create the course while you're traveling the world, traveling Asia with no Wi-Fi or rubbish Wi-Fi. I would say, do you know what? I think back, so it was 2 years ago I launched this, and my God, have I come on a long way since then. I think the first thing I'd say is, like, on the one hand, of course you want to have big goals, but don't put that pressure on yourself to, like, hit that straight out the gate. Because actually, when I think about it, I'm like, I wouldn't have wanted 200 women in my first launch, because I've tweaked it and made it better since then. And I feel much more, as I said earlier, ready to support a large number of women because I've practiced. It's different. It's different to working on a one-to-one basis. And I give, when I do a live round, I give a lot of extra support, and I'm teaching a lot of women live in the Facebook group. So I think that's a big thing is, let go of perfectionism, be really gentle and kind to yourself, like chunk it down and schedule the work you need to do, because I think, it's overwhelming. There is a lot to do at the beginning.
For sure.
And, my background, I was an actress, so I didn't really do much of the tech stuff, but it was really out of my comfort zone. And it's probably going to be for a lot of people when they start. And I would just say, like, just get going, drop the perfectionism, be really gentle with yourself, and don't overwhelm yourself with stuff to do. Like, give yourself long enough. I think I did it in probably too short a time, which is why I was really frazzled.
Yeah, but you grinded it out and you did it. And just give you a scope, how many on that first launch? How many students on that first launch?
So the first launch I think we had 40-ish. But Mel was actually, that's another thing. Mel was an affiliate.
So she helped. So she got some of her.
So she got some, and whilst it was great, and I felt so supported by her, it was a whole extra thing to, like, have to deal with the affiliate thing. So I think, and I did I did the payment plan straight away, which was. I remember you said, don't do it for your first launch. And I did have someone helping us with it. But I think it's just like, get it started, and then it will build momentum. Don't expect it to be like the perfect finished article first off.
Yeah, great advice. And also, thank you for mentioning the tech too. And it's funny because a lot of people, you're right though, a lot of people that come in to create courses aren't inherently techies by nature. Some people are. Some people happen to be, and that's great. And if you're that person, you're watching this right now, pat yourself on the back because you're winning. But a lot of us, and I'm in this category too, when you come in, you just got to kind of grind it out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's one of those things like, listen, it's not going to be the most comfortable, because especially if you're more of that kind of outgoing personality, usually that's a little different than the tech brain. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just got to kind of figure, and that's what you did. You're saying you're like, listen, I'm just going to grind it out. I'm going to do this. It's not going to be, the world's greatest thing in the world, but I'm going to get this done, and I can always improve in the future. Right.
Exactly. And I'll be honest, it was a lot there was a lot of early mornings, sometimes 4 a.m. and there was a lot of coffee.
Yeah. Listen, critical. Critical.
It's critical. You've got to. And I think you're right. It's like, on the one hand, is like, give yourself enough time, but at the same time, give yourself a date and be like, it is launching then, and hold yourself accountable. Like, put it on social. so that you have to do it. Like it's like holding the gun to the head. It's like I'm quite good at like, I think otherwise you can make it go on forever, and you just need to get this thing out so that you can then, course correct as you go.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And it's just, create awesome online courses brought to you by coffee. Very, 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 very true. Now, you mentioned you've had the success stories, you've had the flexibility, you've had a lot of different things that have happened as a result of where you're at so far. And I'm curious, has there been any unexpected things that have happened that you were thinking, oh my goodness, like this is surprising, or anything that's happened since you've kind of put your flag down in the course world and launched your course and evolved it from there?
Do you know what? I mean, I could talk about the career opportunities, but actually it's not that for me. Like, I've really seen it with this round, and obviously this round that we've just finished enrollment period last week. We had a massive group of women come in, our biggest yet, and we did a live last week, and basically what it feels like, and you'll get this, it's like there comes a point where it takes on a life of its own. Mm-hmm. Like, the program takes a life of its own, and you're popping in there and it's lovely, but like, I go into the Facebook group now, and the community and the support and these women are talking about things that are so deep, and with the context that's going on right now, it's so moving to me that they're showing up for themselves and so generous, so kind. Like, it actually makes me cry. Like, it is the most fulfilling thing that has been. I mean, I always knew it was fulfilling, but because it's like, what I feel is it's such a win for both of us, because it doesn't even really need me. Like, it's all automated. Like, I could do nothing and they would still feel like they know me because they're getting all the video trainings. And that's what's, it's quite incredible, online courses for that reason.
Yeah, it sort of becomes a living, breathing thing. And it's funny that, before I get to my final question here in a second, I love this, that you had a post. I had to dig. I dug deep. I went in and did my research, okay? I dug deep. I found a post from you in 2018. Okay, oh, 2018. Okay, when this just shows you, this is a great illustration of how things change over time. Okay, and that you were talking about that you were, I'm going to paraphrase, but you were talking about that you're creating an intensive love coaching program. Okay, and that you really want to do a Facebook group, and you want to have it where you can go live in there, and you want to be able to do the Facebook group. However, there's a part of me that's worried that no one will buy, show up, and it'll make me look like a douche. That is the exact sentence from Persia in 2018, and it's amazing. And then you ask for advice on it. Thanks in advance. And it's funny that look at where we've gotten to now. Look what you just talked about with your Facebook group, and look where it started. And I think that, again, and by the way, we're shooting this in 2020. We're not shooting this in 2046. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is not that long of a time period since then, but it's amazing how I think you would say something very different to that right now. But amazing how it started.
I remember watching you interviewing Mel, coming back to Mel again, while I was creating my program, and the way that it got me through it, I had this vision. I was like, one day David's going to interview me about my program, and that's what I held on to. I just kept visualizing that, and here we bloody are. It's amazing. And I think that, God, if you told me then, it's like I could see it, but I couldn't. There was this big part of me that's like, didn't believe it was possible for me, because I had to go through quite a few live rounds of it until I felt really comfortable. And now I'm like, oh, this is really important, this program. It's really important. I'm so proud. It is that, along with the book I've created and the book I'm writing. And like, these are my legacy. These are the things that I'm most proud of in the world. And I think that one of the biggest lessons I learned from this whole experience and this whole journey is, again, come back to wonderful Marie Forleo. She says, if you don't do everything you can to get to help the people who need you most and get your work out to them, you're stealing from those people who need you. And that's what I felt. And anyone who's listening to this and they're like, either, haven't done the course yet, but it's on their mind, or they're, midway through it and they're really stressed out, it's like, just keep going, because when you see the results that the people who buy your course start to get, it will give you so much joy, and it will be so fulfilling, and it will also give you an incredible lifestyle yourself, so you can impact more and more. And it's just, I'm so grateful to you, David. Honestly, it's completely changed my life.
Well, I appreciate it. It makes me, it makes me feel warm and fuzzy. And, I just appreciate you and putting in the work. I mean, this is all you. You did it. You took the system and you put it into place. But yes, I appreciate that. Means a lot for sure. And so final question, then we'll give some links out. We'll wrap it up is right now, what are you focusing on next?
So right now, I'm running the live round of Get Your Soulmate currently, and that's great. That just sort of takes care of itself. I am also working on a new book called Love is Coming: How to Find Real Love in a Superficial World. And that, in all honesty, that links so much with the course. Like in that book, I'm going to have a link or something to get people onto Get Your Soulmate, because I didn't want to do a self-help book. The reason I prefer online courses is I feel, firstly, there's a higher price point usually, which means that you're more likely to actually do the work. Like how many self-help books I've bought and I've never done any of the exercises.
Right. They end up going up on the shelves or whatever it is.
Exactly. You never look at it again.
Right.
And so I was like, no, the book is very much stories. It's to get you into the world, and then I want I want to lead people to join the program, because that is what's actually going to make huge shifts in their life. So it feels like, again, all of this has come from creating that course.
I love it. Well, good luck. I love the title of the book. This is amazing stuff. Thank you so much today for coming on and being so open about everything. I loved this conversation, the double red conversation here today. Now, on the way out, where are any links, anything you want to share with anyone? Where can people check you out, or where's the best places to send everybody?
So I would just go to my website, persialawson.com. It's got a great free audio training called The Fastest Way to Meet Your Soulmate, even in lockdown. And there's tons of blog posts there and free resources. And I'm really active on Instagram, which is just at Persia Lawson. I do lots of IGTV videos. I answer your questions about dating and relationships. So yeah, please come and say hi and introduce yourself.
I'm getting you on here. We'll give it here. There you are. There's Instagram Persia. There she is. Go find her on there, and you can check out, and you can click around, all kinds of good stuff on here. The audio training, I love it. There's the fiance. We got everybody going on here on Instagram. So Persia, thank you so much again for coming on, and best of luck with everything. And I look forward to seeing you back in the Create Awesome Online Courses Facebook group as usual as well. So thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks, David.